Hey guys, it's Roderick, and I'm here for another episode review of The Handmaid's Tale, Season 5, Episode 10. It's the season finale. Okay, so before I get into this episode, I want to thank you all for coming on this journey with me. If you watched the episode, if you watched the video on why I'm doing YouTube videos, this has just been a really fun way in between projects as I write, direct, and act in films and television shows, just to get some creative energy out and to talk about some of the shows I really like. So this has been really fun. It's been a learning process for me. I hope you all will continue to stick around and watch some of the other videos, some of the other shows I'm talking about doing. And please subscribe and share this video with me, with your other friends, right? Okay, let's get into it because it's the season finale and we got a lot of ground to cover, okay? So we start off with June in the backyard. Now she's at the garden. Remember, she tore her garden up last episode. So we're back to where we started with the beginning of the season with June tilling the soil, which is pretty much what this episode seems to be all about, is getting back to some of where we started from before, right? So she's in the back, she gets a package, she opens it, and it's a bulletproof vest, right? Because after the last episode, we had the shooting, and June's like, I'm not taking any chances, and she has to speak at another memorial or whatever. So now we cut to Commander Nick shows up at Command Central, right? Hunts down Commander Lawrence, and is like, hey, there was a shooting in Toronto. He's like, oh yeah, I heard. And Nick was like, June was there, and he was like, oh, whoops, whatever. He's like, what he says, he's like, June is not a target, right? So he's not really asking a question. He's kind of reaffirming what he knows. And Lawrence is like, well, no, June's not a target as far as I know. Gilead doesn't go around killing, expatriates as far as the government policy, which leaves a lot of room, right, in that statement, because Lawrence kind of gives himself an out, saying like, it's not the official government policy, whatever like that. So Nick is kind of like, And, it's that whole adage of laying with dogs, getting with fleas. So already Luke is kind of rethinking this allegiance he's made with Lawrence because, we've had this kind of shooting. Back in Gilead, Janine is scrubbing the floors, and it's a kind of very cute scene because they're all scrubbing the floors, and they start to sing It's a Hard Knock Life, which I don't know why they haven't sung that before, but I guess this is the only time when you get like a moderately okay Aunt Lydia, because she hears them singing and she kind of smiles to themselves and comes up and is like, oh, yeah, it's okay, girls. You're allowed to sing. Like, we're not that bad. We just force you into sexual slavery and, take out your eyes and take your uteruses and take your clitorises, but you can sing at work because we're not that bad, right? She goes, so why don't you kind of sing a more appropriate hymn? So everyone goes back to, scrubbing and whatever. And, Aunt Lydia goes back, and then Aunt Elizabeth tells her, Aunt Lydia is marveling at how vigorous and how well-mannered the girls are. Aunt Elizabeth is like, yeah, but folks are noticing how much you're giving, like, Janine favor, and they're going to talk if they're not already talking, right? So now Aunt Lydia has to start thinking and coming up with a plan, right? Because I truly do believe in her own warped way, right? Aunt Lydia does care about Janine. Like, I'm not going to dispute that fact. It's like most of the characters in this show, it's their follow through that really ends up getting it really fucked up, okay? So Aunt Lydia comes up with this really brilliant plan, right? Which on the surface seems like a good plan. I will say that. She goes to Naomi, who is literally the front runner for the most delusional person on this show now, next to Janine. Because literally, if Serena and June are foils to each other, right, then Naomi and Janine are right there next to each other, both deluded, both not really having a really good grasp on their current situations, and both just kind of move in these really peculiar ways that seem out of sync with like the actual facts of their circumstances, right? Like, your husband's been shot. Clearly the tide has turned against you. You should have jumped when Commander Lawrence said, will you, right? But she's going to hem and haw. Now she's getting dressed for the kabuki theater of all kabuki theaters, which is this wedding to Commander Lawrence, humming like she's like a 22-year-old bride. I was like, girl, please, right? So Lydia's like, blah, 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 blah. You should have, she's Janine. And Naomi's like, oh my God, are you crazy? How, I would look crazy taking her in. And Lydia's like, no, no, no. You would look forgiving. You would look gracious. This is New Gilead, and the men need new women to step behind them. Really playing and selling into Naomi's over-exaggerated sense of vanity, right? And so Naomi's like, okay, I'll think about it, right? Goes back to humming and do whatever, trying on this dress, okay? Now, back at June's house, they're all hanging out in the kitchen. Maura's there with no business of her own. Hell, it's the season finale. Why would Maura have business, right? I'm sure she's eating out all the potential refugee leaders or whatever like that, giving her tongue a rest, reading the newspaper, doing whatever. They're all hanging out, and June's like sipping on her coffee, and she just goes, this is nice. And literally, I was like, girl, why did you say that? Because I was like, all I know is we got 45 minutes left, and it ain't gonna be all right. I don't know what's about to happen, but I know that little sigh of relief, you should have sighed 40 minutes later, because I know this ain't about to be right? So literally, they hang in the kitchen, and then June's in the house, she's reading the paper, and she's like, then there's a knock on the door, and it's the world's shittiest spy, right? He's there, and he's all sad and discouraged, like, oh, I had the 19 funerals. And June's like, yeah, I know what it's like to get people accidentally killed for my bullshit too. So we're like in the same, we're in the same thing. She sends Tuello away. And so she's like walking back to her house, and then all of a sudden the truck starts to follow her, right? And it's blaring the Beach Boys, Kokomo. And then she like starts to walk faster. And then she like, instead of stepping onto the lawn, right, which would have been the most natural thing, or off the road, she stops, and then the truck hits her, right? And I was like, what? So then the truck hits her and then runs over her leg, all the while singing Kokomo, right? So, which kind of takes it doesn't take the gravity of the scene away, but it kind of lightens it up a little bit, as much as you can for a person being, attacked by a vehicle, right? So then June's laying on the ground, she's like staring up into the air, and then we hear Luke going, hey, what's going on? Luke pulls the guy out. The guy has a rifle, okay, because he's going to get out the car and shoot Gil. By the way, the truck had a whole ass Gilead bumper sticker on it, okay? So he's one of these bullshit ass people in Gilead, in Canada, who want Gilead there, or who like Gilead supporters, which I've said long ago, go to fucking Gilead, right? Like, why, like, if, once again, just go to Gilead. So this guy gets out, Luke beats him, June's like on the ground. She sees him as Luke's beating him, taking him. He's calling for Maura. Then we cut to the scene of June in the hospital, right? So obviously, like, she's disoriented. The doctors are trying to treat her, going to give her some fentanyl, whatever. And here comes the police, like, we want to take you down to the station and to ask, and question you and ask some questions. And I was like, right now, like, clearly his wife is sitting there in the gurney. Like, can't this wait? Like, can't he answer these questions now? Like, clearly she was attacked. So I was like, what is going on here? So Luke is like, no, I'm not going with my wife. The nurse is like, go, 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 whatever. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. And then I was just like, something's up, right? I don't know what's up yet, but I'm like, okay, this can't be good. Now we get to the scene, kind of like this car drives up to the bridge. It has its, lights are both, the lights are on, blah, blah, blah. Here comes Nick to meet the world's shittiest spy, Tuello, right? So then they pat him down. I'm like, what? Is Nick like turning? Like, what, is this it, right? So we find out that Tuello is taking Nick to go see June, okay? Now we get back, and then we stop that. We see Nick go away. We cut back again to Gilead, where the handmaids are all making their beds and everything like that. And here comes Aunt Lydia, and she's like, oh, I got some news for you. She was like, how would you like to see Angela again, right? And then Janine's all giddy, and she's like, well, that sounds great, because Mrs. Chapman, the soon-to-be Mrs. Lawrence, and Janine's like, what? Yeah, Naomi's marrying Commander Lawrence, catch up girl, but you can go and be their new handmaid, and there you go, right? And Janine's like, what? You said I never have to do this anymore. Aunt Lydia's like, the devil is a lie, I never told you that. Like, do you know what this is, right? So Janine is all like, oh my God. Then she's just like, okay. She's like, look, you can't stay here forever. Like, Unfortunately, everybody got to work for a living and do whatever. So you got to put that puss to work and go be the handmaid. Now, if Janine was smarter, she would have figured out that this is a great posting, right? Because Commander Lawrence and we try to hunch her, right? And then all she got is she gets to hang out with Angela and just deal with delusional ass Naomi. So it's pretty much like for a June type of person, which kind of may sometimes give June too much credit, it's a more better long game, right? Like a person who knows how to play the long game would have taken this assignment of like, okay, cool, like best of both worlds, la 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 la. Now, once again, as we see, Lawrence isn't shit, right? So maybe it wouldn't have worked out, but at this point in the story, it's seeming like it's a pretty okay thing. Janine gobbles it up, was like, okay, yay, 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 and then she goes. Now, Nick is at the hospital, he's checking on June. Now, Tuello, who is a shitty spy, seems to have found his calling on helping side chicks, and side dudes get to their main piece, right? So maybe that should be his occupation instead of being a spy. Should be like the shitty matchmaker for side chicks and side dudes. Because he's like, oh, well, Nick is down at the station, Luke is down at the station, so you got a little bit of time, but you probably should be here when he gets here. I was like, okay, great. So Nick is okay, and he goes in, he touches June and kisses on the forehead, and this is a very tender moment. Like I haven't been anti-Nick, I've just been Nick, but I have to say, like this scene started the path to me being like, fuck, y'all gonna make me start liking Nick. Like you could tell in this scene the tender affection and the care he has for June, right? Like, not that like, okay, I needed 5 other seasons to do it, but I really believed it, right? The other times I was like, fuck you, Nick, come up, kid, whatever. I really kind of believed it in this scene and he really sold it. So I was like, okay, y'all gonna get me to start liking Nick. So June's at the hospital, her hand's in a sling, okay? And then she's like, okay, she hears Hargan outside or whatever, and Luke's like, okay, I got a gun in the house, he's feeling guilty about the last time. He's like, I don't want this to be like Boston, being like, he doesn't want it to be where June got taken the last time, right? So again, there's this kind of foreshadowing to, really, it's a callback and foreshadowing to what has happened previously and what potentially may happen in the future, right? About them being separated and whatever. So I was like, okay, Nick has 2 points already, beating up the guy's ass, getting out the truck, coming up with a proactive plan for his family. Nick is good, 2 points on the board. So we're like liking this, right? Now we get to this kabuki theater because June just goes to take a nap because she's just tired, right? So we get to this kabuki theater that's this wedding, okay? The Martha's getting the house ready, the cake is coming, and it really is kind of looking like this is not like whole sham ass of a wedding, right? Like they're really investing into this, which is very much an analogy to Gilead itself, right? Putting on big stunts and shows to cover up the really dirty underbelly of what really happens in this country, right? So Naomi is like, she's telling Aunt Lydia, I prayed on it, and Janine says she got prayed on it, and I decided to take you in on a probationary method, right? So then she's like, cause Angel's away with her grandparents for the summer for the next 3 months, which Lydia is very nervous because Janine could just really flip at a moment. She's like, oh yes, well that's great, thank you, God will be, praise it be, whatever. And she was just like, and all visits with Angela are going to be supervised by me. That's not for discussion. And remember, she's my daughter. Anything else is heresy. You could lose your tongue for that, right? And then little Janine's like, oh yes, that's fine. Praise be. I'm just so happy to be in the house. La, la, la. So then, of course, Naomi, not knowing when to stop, when the bullshit's going on, says to Aunt Lydia, oh, well, that's fine. And you know what? We want to take pictures and we should have the whole family there. So Janine, you could be in our wedding picture. The fuck? Your forced sexual slave in your wedding picture? Like, how is that even like why would you, this is what I'm talking about, shit like Naomi does. Like, why would you think that would be an appropriate thing? Like, Gilead or not, right? Like, I just, But of course, Janine's like, okay, great, yay, whatever. Because she's like playing along, she's hopeful, she's thinking that she could do this long game. Till this gossipy ass Martha comes whispering by and was like, girl, June's been hurt. What? Yeah, they got her in Toronto. These fuckers, she was like, they never let you leave. And now June is pissed, right? Because now so June has to keep getting hit with these bludgeon, reminders all the time that no matter how much, Aunt Lydia is nice to her or Naomi is kind to her, that these are still horrible people, right? And that even though horrible people can do nice-ish things, it does not change the core fact of them being horrible people, right? And I think a lot of people in life have a hard time with that. Like, they see horrible people, but they do nice things, and they kind of excuse away their horrible nature or their horrible deeds by some nice, seemingly good act, not recognizing that these good acts that they're doing are really self-serving to them. If you look, even if you think of Lawrence, way back when taking in June or whatever, all Commander Lawrence has been doing is amassing power, right? Since the first time he was introduced to this show. So he has been making strategic moves to amass power, whether it's taking in June, coming up with this new Gilead system. So he's a horrible person because he's an architect of this, but he does some nice-ish things, right? So that was really the argument that Luke and June were having last episode about Commander Lawrence, because the fact is that no, he's a horrible person. He may have done nice things to you, but it doesn't change the nature of it. Anyway, so now Janine is pissed, right? She's angry and she's shooketh, and then she was like, she's taking pictures, and she's clearly very unsettled by this news she's gotten about June, right? So then Naomi's like, oh, have you seen your room? I can have a Martha take you up, or I could take you up. She's like, oh, it'll be so nice to have a friendly face in the house. Girl, get you some friends. Like, it's like your boss who wants to be friends with the employees, right? Like that's never going to be a friendship-esque relationship, right? You being friends with a person who's forced in sexual servitude is never going to be an equal friendship, right? It's never going to work. We know this because we've seen June and Serena try it and how horribly it ends, because at every juncture, the wife is going to have to remind the handmaid of what her role is in this house, and they're never going to be friends, right? So Janine, who was present on the days June was teaching class of don't trust these motherfuckers ever, gets her some good June spirit and is like, we're not friends. I can't believe you don't see that. I hate you. You're a horrible person. Now, that's why I titled this episode, Folks Moving Recklessly, right? Now, was Janine's comment true? Abso-fucking-lutely. Was that the time to say it? Absolutely not, right? You ain't even put your toothbrush up in the bathroom yet, and you already telling the chick you don't fucking like her. No, reckless, right? So I was like, oh, I wanted to be like, yeah, I mean, I was good for Janine that she finally got her June backbone in and summoned down like the June Osborne, reckless, slick, grease mouthed kind of spirit. But the thing is, you ain't June though, because June has gotten away with so much, you missing the eye. Right? So that little empty eye socket should be a reminder, they don't fuck with you in your slick mind, right? With your slick ass mouth. So I was like, not the time. Very, very reckless, right? So that's our reckless move number one. I was like, right move, wrong time, okay? So then I was like, June is napping in the dark, and she gets up, and then she hears this argument downstairs. At first, I was like, what the fuck is Tawello doing? Because that's typically the only time there's arguments going on, is when like Tawello has shown up, right? But it was like Moira and Rita, because they feed Rita probably, and they're like, what's going on? And we find out that Rita has a friend in the police department who has told her that they're going to arrest Luke for the murder of the guy who attacked June because he has died in the hospital, okay? And they're like, we're going to, June comes down and Luke is like, go back upstairs, Jen doesn't want to hear me, and Rita's going on like, no, this is serious. Like, they can get the warrant if they haven't issued already. They're going to come and get you, whatever. And as June is listening to this, she's like, Luke. And Luke is like, oh, this is bullshit, whatever. Luke, Luke. And she turns around and she's like, this ain't gonna be, we ain't gonna do this again, right? This is how it happened the last time. We could not see how much they hated us, and then when we did, it was too late. We have to run. We are going to run because we're not gonna get caught up in Gilead Part 2, right? And Luke is like, Canada isn't Gilead. And then the line of the show, the line of the season is America wasn't Gilead until it was, which is perfect, right? I don't know whether it's like election night or whatever, but it was like very apropos that things are not what they are until they are, right? So Luke is like, I'm not staying around for this. We got to get ready and run. So Final Luke rant for the season, okay? Luke gets 2 points. He wants to run. This moment of Luke deciding that, I mean, again, the beating of the police officer, the gun, no questions. It's just the characterization, right? And that is just the factorization of, again, having non-white, non-black writers and having a non-ADOS actor, right? And I said I was gonna let that go and not say anything, but it still is the fact, it still is the characterization of that moment, right? Like, I mean, it's just, it was great, but there was just something that was off, and it's just like, would a black person raised in America really have thought that? Now, taking out and aside the fact that even though Canada still has a constitution and due process, even though it's not like American due process, like, I'm sure there's a way in which Luke probably wouldn't have been found guilty, but but it's a device that they're gonna use for the end of the episode. But I was just like, okay. So that whole Luke rant, I was just like, okay, we're done with that. Now, mind you, at this point in the episode, right, we're about like halfway through Act 2, almost to Act 3, and I'm like, where's Serena at, right? I was like, should have stole a whole ass baby. Where's that snipey ass Mrs. Wheeler? Where's that creepy ass Mr. Wheeler? Like what's going on, right? So I'm like, kind of at this point, my antennas goes up. I'm like, where the fuck is Serena at, right? But we're still watching, okay? So then they get ready to run, right? Tuello arrives and he's like, you can't go to the airport because Luke's name's gonna be flagged. And then you're gonna get arrested, June. And then what about Nicole? And he gives that look like, well, you heard what happened to Serena. So I was like, okay, they can't run. But he's like, they're putting refugees on trains because Canada doesn't want them, for them to go out west. So you could go out west, and then you could go out west and then hop on a boat and you can go to Hawaii, right? Free and clear. Gilead doesn't want Hawaii. Hawaii's too hard. It's too far. Whatever. Too many volcanoes. Probably scared that God's going to erupt a volcano and kill them all. So they don't want Hawaii. Hawaii is a safe bet. Okay? So there we go. Even though this is a Tuello plan, I'm like, okay, we'll see. We'll see how this goes, right? Meanwhile, Nick arrives at the wedding stomping mad. He just like stomping in mad. And then suddenly he sees Lawrence and punches him in the face. It was like, you could have killed her. And I was like, okay, reckless move number 2 on this episode, right? Totally get the sentiment, totally get the whole thing, Nick. But punching out Lawrence in the middle of his wedding with all the commanders around was not the best move, right? But he just moves reckless as fuck. And then Lawrence does not deny it. He says, it's like, it wasn't him. It wasn't me. But didn't say, I didn't know about it, I didn't order it, whatever. He says it wasn't him, right? Mind you, now Nick gets dragged out of the wedding, and then Mackenzie, who's Hannah's keeper, I won't call him parent, but stolen person's overseer, local parente, now has both his good eyes on Nick even more, because if you remember earlier in the season, he was already watching and suspicious of Nick as it is, right? So, that reminds me, sorry. When Nick leaves the hospital, he signs an agreement with Tuello that says that he's going to be an asset for Gilead, right? So that was the deal. It was like, you get me in to see June, then I'll come in and I'll be an asset for you to trade information for you. So that was the deal. He's like, there's a contract. Tuello's like, I need contracts because clearly I'm the world's shittiest spy. And clearly they don't want to trust my work product anymore. So I had to get this shit in writing. He's like, no. And then Tuello asked him a question. It's like, you were a driver for the Waterfords when June was there. Why didn't you all run? You could have gone to, so many places. And he's like, oh, she has people for her. I'm nothing. And Tuello's like, that's not true. You're something to her. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm on the Nick train, fine. I'm not sitting in the front of the Nick train, but I'm on the Nick train or whatever. Sorry, I totally forgot that little piece of that or whatever. Now, Aunt Lydia now is back at the Red Center, okay, scolding Janine because she was like, you done fucked up all the whole shit. She's like, okay, we got to make this right. We got to make this right. You're going to go back to Naomi. You're going to beg. You're going to plead. Because literally, girl, this is your best bet if you don't want to get hunched on every month, right? Like, literally. And Janine is defiant. She was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And Aunt Lydia is like, I can't believe you. What is going on? So then, before Aunt Lydia can get her second round of scoldings in, Here comes the eyes, and the eyes come and they drag Janine out of the Red Center, put the little mask over her face, and Lydia is screaming like, "That's my girl, don't you touch her, she's mine, whatever." And she's like screaming, and they're dragging Janine like, they didn't just take her through the little way they went, they dragged her through the long way through the Red Center or whatever. And then they throw her in the van, and Lydia like comes up to the van or whatever like that. And then they push Lydia down, and they drive away Janine, and Lydia's like looking all scowly. I guess that's supposed to be this is the moment Lydia really decides that Gilead isn't worth all the bullshit. We'll believe in one, whatever. Because the truth is, if you look at the scales of bad people, right? Like Fred, Serena, Aunt Lydia, Lawrence, they all have wrapped their horrible deeds around like they're doing what's right or what is righteous, right? But the problem is that if you're doing righteous things, you should have a righteous result, right? And now that the treatment of the handmaids has been exposed to Aunt Lydia, so you're not really getting these righteous results that you need, so why are you really doing this, right? Like, if you can't protect Janine, like, I don't know whether that meant like she's about to be hung or that she's about to lose her tongue. I forget, 'cause I think I remember June being in the van with the thing over her mouth too, and that's when they almost murked her one time too. So like, like at one point is Aunt Lydia gonna say, maybe I made a mistake, right? Maybe this isn't working out. But, people, lessons, whatever, right? So Luke and June arrive at the train station, and it's so much giving me the tease of the first season, that first episode of the flashbacks of Luke and June, and even Emily, that scene when Emily's at the airport with her partner trying to escape. So it's really much giving that thing of, this is when Canada's about to turn, right? Like Canada's like real quick is like on that turn where Canada's about to turn into Gilead, right? It's going to give you that kind of impression. So they have so Tuello gave them fake refugee passes or whatever. They're going down the steps and they're checking IDs or whatever like that. And Luke is like, go ahead, whatever. And June's like, no. And he's like, no, go ahead, I'll be right behind you. So June goes up, and then, Luke is a little bit behind her, and they're walking. And then, there's a police officer that goes, hey, are you looking at where's Luke Bankhole? So they're like, finally, June gets to the gateway, the entryway. They're like, is this your child? Yes. How old is she? 21 months. So now we know it's been 21 months since June gave birth to Nicole, right? So the show has now given us a final kind of ticker as far as how old she was. Because remember, that when the season started, she was 14 months, right? So we know that 7 months has elapsed since the beginning of the episodes, the beginning of the season, to the end of the season, right? So these little time demarcations are really kind of interesting and important to know how much time has lapsed. You're not really actually wondering like how long it's been, right? So now we know it's been, she's 21 months. So then she's like, okay, she gets on. Luke calls June. He's like, do you see them? Yes. He's like, I'm coming. And then Luke goes into, you're not going to be safe as long as you're with me. Get on the train. You're not going to be safe in Gilead. If you're here, they're going to keep coming after you. They're going to keep coming after your baby, our baby or whatever. And it becomes a very tearful goodbye because Luke decides to sacrifice himself in order for June and Nicole to get away. Now, when I watched this episode, I had a whole big Luke rant prepared, right? After thinking about it, I can't fault the actions, right? Because I'm comparing it to modern day now and constitutional protections and due process and all these things, and not a society that's on a tottering edge of total totalitarianism, and the fact that Luke is a refugee, right? And so refugee statuses and refugee rights are a little bit different than American citizens' rights, in some respects, right? So I was about to go in and go hard on how this was bullshit or whatever, but I also recognize that not only is it a device to get June to the next place, sans Luke, or having Luke have his own story, that it's also probably was the best decision, right? Because more than likely they wouldn't have made it through and whatever. So I can't go in hard on Luke like I was supposed to because I was ready to fucking Dracarys him all the way down for this bullshit ass move. But I realized that it probably was the best move ever, right? So Luke gives himself up. It's a fact sacrifice. And June is heartbroken because she realizes that he probably was never going to get on the train, right? He was just going to get them there and then give himself up and whatever like that, just to make sure that Nicole and June got safe, ergo the name of the episode, okay? Meanwhile, Nick is in jail, like whole ass jail, okay? So here comes Salty Rose, okay? And she's mad. And she was like, why do you say you love me if you still run back to your girlfriend every time? And it's, Nick is sort of like, and he's like, why can you give her up? Why can't you give her up? And Nick is like, I tried, but I can't. Which, okay, I was like, okay, Nick, okay, don't make, like, I already said I like you. You ain't got to go for the extra moments or whatever. And then Naomi's like, well, I can't, I'm done with you. I don't want you. And I was like, bitch, where are you going? You pregnant? Like, they don't, like, I don't know why these women in Gilead think that they can move and be pregnant with these children all by themselves, right? So your better option is to be with Nick, because what's your other option, right? Plus, this fucks Nick royally, because not only has he pissed off now Commander Lawrence, right? And other, like, limbing other commanders going to follow Lawrence's lead. Rose's dad is a high-ass commander, right? And Mackenzie has been looking for a reason to fucking scoop up Nick and get him in trouble anyway. So Nick is fucked, okay? He is fucked at this point. And I was like, all this for a fucking visit? I mean, now you can't even provide Tuello with any of the information that you want. And if you could, they'll be watching you and tapping your phone lines and doing all this sneaky shit. So was the visit really worth it? Was it though? I don't know. I say no. Drop down in comments and let me know, right? Still at this point, now we're like at 7.5 minutes or so into the episode. And I was like, now where's Serena at? Now that's like, I was like, they're gonna have a whole ass episode on Serena? Maybe so, right? So June settles on the train. Nicole starts crying. I'm like thinking, girl, do you have credit cards? You got enough cash? Do you have like sanitation wipes? Like, how is this, like, we're on our way to Honolulu? Like, how's this gonna work? Like, I guess they got PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App or whatever, but Maura, if she could take time from Munching Box, is gonna have to be your like personal banker or something. I was like, how's this Honolulu plan gonna work out, right? I recognize it was totally on the fly, but I was like, okay, this is the time for you to start coming up with some plans, June, if you're gonna be in a whole ass Honolulu, okay? So she's wandering on the train and she's looking and she's trying to get settled in. And as soon as she starts walking the train, I was like, bitch, tell me Serena ain't on the same motherfucking train. So then I was like, okay. And then what do we hear is a baby crying. I said, ha ha. And I was like, oh my God. And so then she's like, oh, there's another baby crying. And then all we see is the shadowy figure of Serena. And then June's like, and Serena's actually kind of happy to see her. She's like, and then June's like, and I have to give Serena credit, right? Like, I was very disappointed in the fact that we didn't see the Wheelers get their revenge and she didn't burn them to a cinder or poison their oatmeal or something like that. I guess they're gonna show more later or whatever. But I have to give credit where credit is due. If you can escape, get your ass on a train, right? All without the world's shittiest spy help, I have to give it to Serena because she could get plans done. As she said, she toppled the whole country. So once again, like, who else could get themselves on a whole ass refugee train going west, if not Serena, right? So then she was like, hi, June. Hey, Serena. Which, of course, I would feel some sort of way, too, if literally I can't shake this bitch. She's, like, literally like HPV at this point, okay? Like, and we'll start calling Serena next season HPV because you can't shake her. She's always gonna be with you, June, so you might as well just get used to it. And then Serena's like, got a diaper? I always be like, bitch, you can't even be like, how you doing, whatever, we start asking me shit, okay? Like literally Serena thinks this is gonna be like a mommy and me shit where her and Serena will be raising their babies together under the palm trees in fucking Hawaii or some shit. And I was like, ugh, here we go, okay? But that is the episode, right? Commander Lawrence is definitely on that snakish shit, right? I do think he's turning kind of snaky, but we'll see whether or not he's gonna go full snake next season. But I have to say this season was really great. It really definitely like gave us a trajectory of kind of where we started and where we ended. And there was some really lots of great moments. I think some seasons people have not been too happy because they felt that they dragged or they got too much of a big bomb at the end. But this episode really kind of, I felt it just really tied just about everything up, right? So it's not necessarily a reset or a reboot, but it sets us up for the final season, which the stakes are now high. So remember, Nick's in jail. Janine's on her way to either get hanged or being tongueless. Child Esther is going to be pregnant, still in the bed, locked up somewhere. They didn't even show Esther, okay? And Commander Lawrence is on some snake shit, and June and Serena are going to be in Hawaii. Now, whether or not they actually make it to Hawaii, or whether they make it to LA, which I think, according to the map, LA may be free, or LA-ish, or like Malibu may be free. So we'll actually see what happens, and kind of what that trajectory happens for these characters. So, like I said, I'm so thankful for you all for joining on this ride with me. Please like, please comment, please subscribe to this channel because I have a lot more content coming up with some of your favorite shows. Like I said, The Morning Show on Apple TV, Severance, 2 shows I'm definitely going to do, and I'm going to dabble and do The Real Housewives of New Jersey when that starts for a little reality TV mix. So like I said, if you have any other shows, someone suggested You on Netflix, and I have a lot of things to say about You, so I may do You on Netflix, kind of like I did Bling Empire, like break it up in like parts or whatever as I watch it. So drop down any of the shows you like. So thank you guys so much for being on this journey with me. That is it for this season of The Handmaid's Tale. I will see you all next year for The Handmaid's Tale, and I'll see you on Sunday for White Lotus. Okay, bye.